All right, it's 5 past. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to this week's All Hands. Let's take a look at the agenda. All right, we are recording, I believe. Yes, we're recording. Excellent. So if anybody has agenda items, please put them in now at the end, if possible, so that we can cover them. Otherwise, David added lots of agenda items for us today, so that's good. So we have something to talk about. All right, let's get started with the first one. David, talking about circuit relay specification.
Awesome. Thank you.
You had 5 minutes.
I have what? 5 minutes? I think 5 minutes is enough. You can shut me after 5 minutes. So hi everyone. I have published a new version of the circuit relay specification. Basically, it's an iteration over the old one that coalesces all of the comments that were made across multiple PRs and multiple issues. And it was getting very hard to really get a good idea of what the thing had to be. And doing it so asynchronously was not working because there will be multiple people talking over the spec in multiple channels. So what I did, as we agreed last week, was okay, I'll just take the responsibility and coalesce all of them myself and create a new PR that is clean and close all of the other issues and point all of those issues to this PR and then have everyone do a review on this PR. I think we are pretty close. We probably are 95% of getting the relay spec finished. At least I don't find any major issues, and apparently other people that have reviewed didn't find it as well. Nevertheless, I welcome everyone to really do a fine-grained review, make sure we are not missing any edge case, make sure that we are not missing something that was already taught, and that we can incorporate that all in the spec. Because once the spec is merged, then people should be able to implement it from that specification. Hope this was clear and enough to everyone. Let me know if you have questions.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it's really good to coalesce those into one place because I know that I got 5 notifications on 5 repos for relay discussions. Kuba?
So I was staying out of relay spec discussions. I think I might try giving it throughout read and try to see what's unclear for me. And this way, as people work on something, they start to miss the details, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. We might be already so used to talk about certain things about relay that we miss to explain some of the bits that are necessary for the people to understand. Also, it is a spec, and we currently have several styles of specs that are scattered over the IPFS specs repo and the peer-to-peer specs. You can see this spec as kind of a defeat style from iterations from previous specs that I wrote. If there is something that you don't think it's clear from the structure of how the spec is laid out, if there is something that we think we did best in some other spec, please point it to me, because we can always restructure. And at some point, doesn't have to be now, but some point in time, we should find a structure for writing these technical specs for implementations that suits multiple needs and not just have one spec template per spec. So Kuba, I know that you have written the private network spec. Compare those two, see what you could take to the private network spec and what you can take from the private network spec to this relay spec. That would be super useful. All right.
Well, one note on that, it might be very useful to start collecting specs we like, especially also specs that we've read that are not written by us, so that we have a place to source from, because there are quite a lot of people on the internet writing specs. So it might be useful to source from those to converge onto a general spec style that we want to go for in the near future.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to learn from out there, and there's a lot of like formal templates, like RFC style. I would say that like now we have the opportunity to actually like rethink that a little bit until like there will be parts of the spec, especially on the multi-format land, that will be published under some like standard bodies, and we will want to follow their format. But like since we have this hybrid between like formal specification and specification for implementers, we can experiment a little bit and like try what works best, especially with the whole community, the whole ecosystem in GitHub. But yeah, I agree that we should like make the best we can from others.
Cool. Thank you. Any other comments on this? No. All right. Next one. JSLib P2P updates. Read. Here you have lots of new things for us.
Awesome. Yeah. So, by the way, if someone like has items to the agenda, please add them between mine so that I don't keep speaking. That would be nice. Okay, so I've been updating like JSLib peer-to-peer before. We kind of had a model where we have like this base class where you could extend the base class and implement your own peer-to-peer bundle. But that was not clear to everyone, and it required a lot of maintenance because like every time you updated something on the peer-to-peer tree, now you have to update all of the bundles that people publish as modules. And what we realized was, well, it is probably better to just like make one single entry point where people can like read examples, they can read the whole documentation, they can read how to extend the base class, and they can see the tests. Like the tests, instead of like the tests being on each of the bundles, like the tests are all on this base class, and like basically the tests implement their own bundles and like test things individually and together, like TCPs with stream muxers, like transports with stream muxers, with crypto channels, and so on. So now, if you go to, and let me share you my screen with you my screen. So if you go to the JSLib peer-to-peer repo, can you see my screen fine here, like this page here? It kind of like has a fresh look, like you can see the new logo, which I really like.
Nice.
It has like a background, like explains like why peer-to-peer exists in the first place. It has pointers like to full bundles, like the ones that IPFS uses still. It explains how to create a base, like how to extend the base class I was just speaking about. And like you can basically bring your own modules. Here we are bringing TCP and WebSockets, and like we are adding them, and like we are using the speedy stream muxer and SecIO as the crypto channel. And then like you have all of the API call documentation. Like after you extend the base class, these are the primitives you get with peer-to-peer: start and stop, dial, hang up. Oh, I need to fix it's a typo here. Peer routing, content routing, protocol muxing, and so on. If these are like all new terms to you, one of the things I worked a lot, especially during this weekend, was getting really nice examples. So if you go now to peer-to-peer examples and tutorials, there's a lot here. And you have like this kind of like walkthroughs of what is a transport and why do we need to support multiple transports, and how do you create a bundle with more than one transport. And like all of these tutorials always have like steps that explain what you have to do. There's a lot of information here to digest, and like they always have the final version of that example so that you can like run it and learn from the final example yourself. So there's like transports, there is protocol and stream muxing, there is encrypted communications. So like how and why do we have SecIO? There is peer discovery somewhere. Okay, there you go, peer discovery. So this explains how to use the bootstrap, how to use multicast DNS, and also gives you a hint that you can like find discover mechanisms in like the WebRTC transport and also the DHT module. There is 2 more examples I'm working on for publish subscribe. and for the peer content routing. You should see these ones being merged soon, like this week. And the other thing I also did was create like a general update, the things that we call typically the captain logs. So we peer-to-peer hasn't seen a captain log in a while, but now we have like a log. It's like from yesterday, and basically gives you like a run through of the things I just explained here. There's also a Reddit account. The Twitter account has been like for a while, but now it's like more active. The single entry point, the tutorials, what we are working on, and yeah, this is it. I think it looks way nicer. In terms of like maintenance, it reduced maintenance a lot because now like I just have to write tests once here, and I need to just update things on just IPFS, and it works. It's nicer, and yeah, would love to hear everyone's thoughts. Like, please check it out, and try the examples, and yeah, like I think it's like a very useful tool to actually teach networks to other people. Like if they are not familiar with like these concepts of like peer discovery and peer routing and transports and so on, I think the examples make a good job of like explaining why they are necessary, why they exist, and the differences and so on. Matt?
Do you know of anyone outside of the like libp2p team who has done their own implementations based on the previous version where you had to implement your own stack, or is it all?
Matt, you are cutting a little bit, but now you are completely off. Matt?
I believe we lost Matt.
Well, I think I managed to understand what was the question. So if I understood correctly, Matt was asking if there was other communities, other groups, other projects that created their own peer-to-peer bundle to use in their own application. Oh, Matt, you're back. Is your connection better now?
I don't know. It's supposed to be 200 megabits. I don't know what's going on.
Probably the Wi-Fi. If you're far from your router.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm back now. Sorry.
I was just like repeating your question. If I understood correctly, you were asking if there were other projects, other communities that built their own peer-to-peer bundle with all of these pieces, right?
Yeah. And are you aware of anyone outside of the libp2p team using this stuff?
Yeah. So, for example, the Ethereum team has been playing with libp2p for a while. There is compute.io that uses IPFS/libp2p PubSub to do IoT computing strategies. And what I've been seeing is, yes, people are using libp2p, but they're not necessarily building their own bundles. It's more, we'll just like use IPFS because it's the one that runs in Node.js and the one that runs in the browser and like the one that has all the features that I need. So I'll just like use that one and not worry about building my own. And yeah, that works. Why not?
All right. So this switch doesn't actually disrupt anyone who is relying on libp2p.
No,
it just makes it easier to maintain.
Yeah, and like we have checked the dependence through NPM. So NPM, you can see who is depending on your module if they have published something to the outside world. And like so far, like the bundle, the previous bundle still works. And like we have issued a notification. It's like on the README now. So like if people were using that in a private way, they will see that now they have to migrate over. And the migration is just like doing a bunch of npm installs and copying one file. Like it is not disruptive. Like we didn't change. We didn't do any breaking changes in API sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. I believe that was libp2p updates. So libp2p JS libp2p getting to nice shape. Next up, David. We haven't heard from you in a long time. So you're talking about JS IPFS version 25, I believe.
All right. Yeah, I can go next. I see that you added an items. If you want to go next, please, because I have another one after this one.
Let's do this one, and I'll go after.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so I announced today so like, as you might be familiar by now, when we release just IPFS, we kind of like always do an issue like describing what is going to be released, like a pre-announcement, so that people can like have time to test it out, tell us if they found any bugs, and just like get the community ready for the next iteration. The next version is 0.25, and it's more of like a maintenance release than actually like a breaking change in terms of API, or just like that adds a lot of features. There is one significant change, which is if you are using WebRTC in Node.js. So WebRTC in the browser will continue working as it was working previously. But if you were using it in Node.js, you now have to like plug in your own WebRTC theme. And we, like the README explains how to do that. And the reason why we have to do that is because WebRTC in Node.js land means that we have to install a native dependency. And that makes it really hard for some like runtimes to like get JS running, for example, Linux or Windows. We have been also like trying to get the experience of Electron users using JS on the main process, so not the browser process. Again, like the browser process is always fine. There's just like the Node.js part, which requires this dependency, this native dependency, which is very alpha. It is the one that's like more tricky and that you have to go through more steps. But again, it's under README, and you can always open an issue if you have a running into 20 problems. There is also an issue with all of these. Let me share my screen again. There's also an issue like listing all of these updates. There you go. Yeah, so standard release issue highlights what's going on, the WebRTC situation I was just talking about, what we are going to do in the future or like the soon future, the release checklist. And yeah, like if you have an app using just IPFS, it would be great if you could like list it here, because if the app is open source and it has tests, I'll be more than happy to, when releasing just IPFS, to go and try to run your tests, or even just like open an issue on your project to say, hey, we are going to release a new version of just IPFS soon. You might want to try it before, so that you know what you need to migrate. And yeah, it's more of a maintenance release. Like it includes a lot of bug fixes, and it like brings the new peer-to-peer. And yeah, essentially that's it.
Great, thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, go check it out. Coming soon to NPM, hopefully. All right. Oh, sorry, I have some items myself. So the first one is essentially a call for help. When we ported the data store from Go to JavaScript, we essentially re-implemented the same interfaces for query that Go implements. Now, Pedro has pointed out that those interfaces are making it, because they're basically, for most part, functions, callback-like functions that you pass in, make it very hard to actually optimize heavily if you would implement data stores for something like a SQL store, for a SQL database. So the question here becomes how to move forward with this, and how we can ensure that still keeping all necessary functionality that we need, and might be still maybe even be able to change the interfaces in a way that it is easier for implementers to make these performant when implementing data stores. So there is a bunch of comments in that issue that I linked there. Please feel free to go there. I would also especially like to hear from the Go side of things, because I believe it makes most sense if both languages decide on how to move forward with this. So any background, any additional information that we can get there would be very appreciated. Thank you. All right. Any questions? David?
Thank you. Awesome. I think, yeah, this is awesome. And like, we definitely should like revisit all of this API. It has kind of been like, the first data store was something defined in 2011. So, and it was designed initially for Python, and like from Python to Go and from Go to JS, like there are some things that just need to be redesigned to adapt to the language. The thing, and like thanks to JS and like its highly dynamic runtime, the fact that we can actually inject like different repo instances on the fly or on IPFS nodes creation. One of the things I talked with Pedro was that a third option of we have like our default data stores for the IPFS repo, and they offer the primitives that like we need, like that are defined on the interface. But then for applications that want to operate over the same data, but want, for example, to create an index to get like queries faster, they can inject their own data store that also exposes those features for that app to consume. But for IPFS doesn't even care, right? Because like as long as IPFS has those primitives that like it was looking for defined by the spec, it's fine. However, the key thing here is like the spec doesn't say these calls and not any more calls. Like if the spec says it has to have these primitives, and if it has these primitives, it's fine. If you add more, it's also fine because it's JavaScript and like you can add whatever you want. And that enables cases like PubSub Room and like the LiveDP that Pedro is building to have their indexes happening underneath, and like the very fast queries for like making the LiveDP more interesting, and still make it work with the rest of the IPFS ecosystem without bringing anything. So it is like a thing to explore, and I think that like we need to document better and like just like show by example, because it is tricky. Like it's not intuitive that, oh, I can inject my own version of the storage backend that like exposes the interfaces I want and implements the query engine in my own way, and like still offer the same primitives that the rest of the IPFS instance needs. It's not intuitive at all. Like we need to document this very well.
There's also something that I did not port when I did the initial port because it's not fully completed yet, as far as I know. Go IPFS is working on implementing configurable data stores so that your IPFS config will contain a field with just data stores. And so this is something we also probably want to eventually pull in and implement. Kuba?
Yeah, it's getting quite close to done. So you will have just a data store spec in IPFS config, and if there's no existing data store and you are initializing your IPFS node, it will just create those data stores from spec. And otherwise, there will be migration tool that will be able to migrate between two different data store specs transparently. So like currently we have some spec, it is just implicit, and we'll make it explicit and then allow tool to migrate between them. We are and this will allow like to users to tune data stores for performance, or like, so for example, we have very good data store upcoming, but it probably won't work with like hundreds of terabytes of data, but will work with like hundreds of gigabytes. So like we can't make it default, but from the other side, like it would be very nice default because it's very fast.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, this is definitely something we should also keep track on the JS IPFS side.
Yeah, absolutely. And like in the end, we just need to explain that there are multiple options and that we have been working on all of them, and then like show what are the metrics that we are like trying to optimize for. And in the end, like it's a list of like names of the data stores that we built with like reads, like capacity to like, I don't know, maturity of the implementation itself, performance for large data sets, for small data sets, etc. And then developers can pick whatever they want the most. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool. Very distracted now. Oh, you're still there. Cool.
All right. Yeah, so go check out these issues. Think about data stores. They're pretty cool. And help us make them better. Also, please post any use cases you would have for data stores, maybe in that issue, because that also will help define APIs in terms of what we need going forward. All right, so got one more issue for you. AG, the build tool that we're using in the JS ecosystem to build IPFS and the P2P things is getting a new version. It's coming out soon. Well, as soon as all the bugs are fixed and the features are implemented. It is going to remove gulp, which is going to make a lot of people happy, I believe. And it's going to be mostly a drop-in replacement. There will be a little migration here and there if you rely on internal things, but it will hopefully just make it a lot easier if you're maintaining a module. Yeah, also what is already done is the linting configuration is now a shared ESLint config, which is published to NPM. So if you want to reuse that, you can just install that and directly extend it. It's an IPFS /ESLint-config-agr, I believe. Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. I cannot wait to see it.
The CLI will now also have things like help flag, and will actually tell you what's happening. So it's going to be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Agr has been super, super useful throughout the entire project, throughout all the JavaScript repos. It is, yeah, you just needed this cleanup, this polish for a while. No, but it's finally getting it, so super excited. Cool.
Yeah. All right. David, I believe you have another item for us. OPSEC.
Yeah, so last item on the agenda today. By the way, I think some people had demos for today. I don't see them added on the agenda. Maybe I'm wrong. Just checking.
If you have a demo, list it now.
So OPSEC, operational security. We have been chatting over, we had a conversation going on for quite some time. We had the opportunity to discuss it in some issues. Sometimes we also had that discussion here at the All Hands. And essentially it's just making sure that we don't open the room to do any mistakes with regards of shipping code into production. After all, IPFS gets more and more used. There is more people putting it into production, people experimenting with it, installing it in their own machines. So we start to we need to be extra careful with what gets merged into master, what gets released, and so on. And so we have been trying to figure out what are the best strategies to make sure that we enable everyone in the community to contribute to these projects while not getting into a state where everyone has admin permission to every single repo and can do every single thing that they want, right? GitHub fortunately let us roll back a lot of these things. After all, it's a version control system, but there is some admin tasks that cannot be rolled back, and there is a lot of distress that can be caused by pushing the wrong code at the wrong time. And so we started to see alternatives to make sure that this works well. And one of them is that now GitHub, for example, enables us organization owners to set a default option that says everyone in this organization that has write access to a repo should have two-factor authentication enabled. It is a simple step. It is a very powerful security step. It essentially ensures that your account cannot be compromised by a brute force attack. It's very easy to set up. It's just annoying because setting that up without telling the entire community might mean that some people receive some weird emails from GitHub saying now you don't have permission to write this repo anymore because that option was set up. So we need to make sure everyone understands that we are thinking about it and that everyone understands when we turn that option on. I think the best is just as usual to open an issue and raise this concern and this option and make sure that everyone that has an opinion can voice it beforehand. Otherwise, it might be just better to enable that. The other thing, and I know Lars is working on this, is we have like teams per organization, like the JavaScript team, the Go team. Some people like work across multiple teams, and sometimes like saying language dash team is not the best way to organize people. But so far, it has been the easiest way to get a clear perspective of like who is working on what. Is okay, this person is on the JavaScript team, so they have access to the JavaScript repos. We have been discussing the idea of like once a person is not active contributing to code like daily for 3 to 6 months, to consider like reducing the permissions of that person to something like read access instead of like having write access to many of the repos, just as a security measure. Something that like can be again bumped up as soon as the person wants to contribute again, but just to make sure again that no one gets their account compromised in the future, we can switch that person from a JavaScript team to a contributors team, which means you are still part of the org. You still keep receiving the same notifications. You can still subscribe to other repos in the same way that you are subscribing. You just like lose the right permission to some of those repos for the time while you're not contributing. It seems like a sane approach and like a clear one. Sometimes this information, if it's not well communicated, can like lead to some very sensitive conversations. So we are just now preparing everything to do those updates. Kuba, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, like one small thing to raise. By default, when you gain write access to the repo, you are starting to watch the repo. And when you lose the write access, you are stopping to watch the repo, which will be quite annoying for some people, especially if they are like they didn't subscribe to all the repos because they gain the write access, and when the write access is revoked, they won't be watching those repos anymore. But it can be solved with tooling. So like a lot around those things, the tooling is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably like I would guess that like we are not only open source project that ask these kind of questions. Probably there is already like other services that extend GitHub to have this kind of user management models. Right now we are just in this situation where like sometimes the way to add someone to have push access to a repo was adding them to an admin repo, an admin team, which would give them admin permissions to every single repo, and that is not like a sane, secure, safe way to actually distribute permissions. So what we might do, like in the following weeks, is reduce people, like change people to like take people out of the admin team and like put them on like contributor teams, like JavaScript team, Go team, and so on. And then once we find the tooling, or once we develop the tooling, then like have a more clean process of understanding who is not contributing for 6 months, sending an email saying, hey, like how's it going? Like notifying we are going to like remove the right permissions and then do that. Kuba?
Like something important to do before reducing someone's admin permissions is to make sure that re-adding, like in process of removing his admin permissions and adding him to like the language specific team, he doesn't lose access to multiple repos that are currently not in the team, which is like the state of multiple repos right now.
Yeah, that's the. So Friedel, just like answering breaking to Kuba, that's like some of the things I had done this weekend was making sure that like every Go dash or JS dash belong to the JavaScript or the Go team. So that's like if we do that, we know that those contributors don't lose access. Friedel?
Yeah, two things. The first thing is, I believe it would be good. We have a list of who has write access, who is in the admin team, etc. So I think it would be good to open an issue for permission changes and tag all those users that will be affected by the change. I don't know, a couple of days before, and they'll like send out a message like, look, this is going to be the change. Don't be alarmed. This is going to happen. If please comment here if there's some problem with that. And the other thing is, in addition to the admin permission changes, probably good. We should also probably start looking into enabling protected branches by default for master, such that push to master is only allowed for admins once only once CI is passing. There's some very nice checks you can enable, which even force admins to adhere to them. So that, for example, if you're an admin, because you have to manage it, you still can't merge unless CI is passing, unless you go to the settings and remove the protection, which as an admin you always can do, right? But so that you don't accidentally merge stuff that shouldn't have been merged. And you can also enforce at least one code review acceptance, for example. So at least for major repos, I believe this should be something we should add going forward. As far as I know, Go IPFS, the main repo, has some branch protection enabled already, but pretty sure that most of the others don't.
Go IPFS had like merge protection, mainly merge and push protections, but problems with CI is CIs like to fail randomly, especially on big projects.
JS IPFS also has that, but I think it's kind of like lying to ourselves, saying, "Oh, JS IPFS has that, so we are protected," and then like JS multi-other doesn't have, and like it is part of the same tree, right? Like it is the same code that gets shipped. So like if we do for one, you have to do for all of them, and I wonder if we try that and say, okay, let's just like do master branch protection. Like everyone has to review at least once. The CI might be brutal, as Kuba said, because like sometimes CI acts weirdly and changes without us knowing. So like we don't control it. If it was our CI, it would be different. So
we could start without CI. We could start with like, protection for and review requirement.
Like if we turn that on today for all of the repos, and like give it a trial period of like 2 months, let's see what would be the pain points there. Like if there happens to be a pain point, we might just experience like a really good transition. And like if it's super painful, if someone just like screams saying, "Oh my god, I cannot contribute anymore because like we protected a master branch," then we have to solve that situation if that happens. This way we get to try it and we get to test it out. Kuba?
Let's move it to an issue and discuss there. Like we can first think is propose something and then gain opinion of others, also people that are not in the scope.
Sounds good.
All right. So that okay. Thank you, David, for all the security things. All right. Anybody have any agenda items that they want to talk about before we move on? Anybody remembered something? No?
We can plug that there will be a demo of a lot of this data rescue stuff, the data together stuff we've been working on, but it won't be this week. But we have some people on the call today who have been working on it, so you can let them say hello.
Can we get a sneak peek?
Brendan and Don.
Hello, welcome.
Also, I would add a little bit on the SQL data store stuff. We've been working on some work on the Go side of that, and I'll be jumping in on that issue. Looking forward to contributing.
Cool, thank you. All right, do we have any demos then today? Anybody? Nobody? All right, I guess we had many demos last week, so I guess.
Yeah, it seems like the best demos are like scheduled. Like we invite someone to give a demo and they have like a week or two to prepare and then they like give their demo. That seems to go well. But then also, I mean, having space for people to show, like, hey, here's something I worked on this week is good.
Yeah. I hope I'll have a demo next week, but not today yet.
Yeah, I think there will be 2 demos next week because there were 2 demos scheduled for this week that got deferred 1 week.
Sorry, next week we will have something for Ethereum and IPFS. Kumavis has got a ton of work on the resolving of the different objects of Ethereum.
Exactly, that was like one of them. And I know like
Cool.
Mavis was working till 2 a.m. yesterday on
Yeah,
getting
maybe
last
he
week.
overslept and was presenting today, but next week it goes.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, like I think that the demos also like remind people of like reviewing all things that are integrated. Like the last demos that we had this week, last week, and the demos that we were going to have this week, and now got postponed to next week, already revealed like some issues that now people are solving because they had to do a demo. So I guess that's good. Like it's good that like we keep the ball rolling and like we keep inviting people because it helps for all people that then want to try those tools to make sure that like they can also run it by themselves.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I believe that concludes our agenda. I'll stop the recording then.